Every business or an entrepreneur right now has put in place the 2024 business strategy. But how do you get it right in terms of implementation, looking at the current uncertainty about the economy, and also how does the environment impact this plan as a business? Well, on PM Express Business Edition, we're looking at the 2024 business strategy and the larger economy. And how do you ensure you get the implementation right with all these challenges going on in the economy? Well, he's a business strategist, a business lawyer, a senior partner at law firm AB & David. Mr. David Ofosu-Dorte, I appreciate your time so much and thank you for engaging us or having an opportunity to sit down with us in your busy schedules on PM Express Business Edition. How would you describe 2023?
Topsy-turvy, if it's the way to, describe it in two words, or maybe one word, topsy-turvy. We had the challenges of the domestic debt exchange program, as you know, and we are talking about Ghana here. Inflation, which was trending close to the 50s. 53%, or thereabouts, now trending downwards. The fear of the currency fluctuation stemming from 2022, remember? I recall at the beginning of 2023, one of the financial institutions had a session with me on my outlook for 2023, and one of the things they were looking for was what was the budget number for the currency as to the dollar to the cedi, and I gave them 13, and I said it was not going to exceed 13. They didn't quite believe, but it has not exceeded 13. I think I got that prediction right. It was one of the crystal ball predictions as well. But the fear of that currency exchange turned from 2022, and therefore it was one of the fears that we had. But the debt exchange, the whole financial sector had a trickle-down effect on many things. I think it was a very, very tough year, making business confidence go fairly down, in my view.
Has what happened in 2023, some would say, made nonsense again of strategizing, planning? Because some would say you can do all the learning before the exams, but things can change in the examination room. Has what happened in 2023 be right to make that statement that it makes nonsense of a strategy because these externalities will always throw things out of gear?
I don't think so. It actually, for me, even consolidates my belief in strategizing. It's a question of how people understand strategy and its impact, and whether people even strategize at all. Just to give you an example, and this may surprise you, you can verify from some members of the Association of Ghana Industries. I do quite a lot of these boardroom discussions, etc. And in the session we had in early 2022, the question of whether Ghana was going to go to IMF or not came up, and in discussing strategy. And I had a slide on the board which simply said IMF, and everybody said, but the government said we're not going to go to IMF. And I said I was ready to bet if we were not at IMF by October, I would be surprised. And we were at IMF by July. A good strategist should have the ability to foresee, looking at trends. So by 2022, for me, the fact that we were going to go to IMF was a foregone conclusion, which means that saying that because of external factors, failing to strategize is a better approach is rather wrong. You are better at planning and failing than not planning at all. And there's something you must remember. Those who strategize and plan fare better when the times are hard. And they fare much, much better when the times are good. So if you plan and even the externalities change it, because you planned, you know how to adjust. But if you don't plan, then you get carried away by the...
I asked this question because, listen, whoever thought that somewhere, is it in October, September, or November, the city's challenges that virtually woke up every day and the city was depreciating? And that's why I'm saying that you look at some of these developments that happened, that is in 2022 and even 2023, and you ask yourself whether you can, because you plan that, okay, at maximum the Ghana city would hit like maybe 13, 14. And so what happened? At maximum, maybe we won't do an IMF program, and it throws things out of gear. And someone asks yourself that maybe plan on each day to look at what will happen the next day.
Again, I think it is for those who don't really understand strategy. Remember, and we should not confuse 2022 with 2023.
Yeah.
In 2022, the fluctuation went all the way to 16 and came down. we've had between 11 and 12.5 all throughout 2023. Now, the question in 2022, rather, is whether many people predicted that. Good strategies did. I mean, if you look at if you look at government expenditure and you look at the percentage of debt to GDP ratio, you should have had an idea that the currency wasn't going to be stable. There's another more important point. You should look at the cycle. Cycle is very important in strategizing because in 2014 we had a similar situation, and we were back to the cycle. Look, if I take the 17 times we've been to IMF, on the average, you go to IMF every 3.8 years. So if you are developing strategy and you do not have history and cycle in mind, you are using the wrong approach to strategy. So for 2022, we had the challenges. 2023, it made it very topsy-turvy, as I have said. And now, those external factors are part of the factors you take into account in strategizing. And that is why strategies come up with a lot of tools. For example, one famous tool for strategy is what is called PESTEL. And PESTEL enables you to be able to scan the environment and see what is happening in the environment. And if you did a good analysis of the environment, you should have a very good idea what you can project. You cannot be precise, for sure. Some wins will come that you did not expect, but at least it gives you a better stand. And if you did that before you did the so-called famous SWOT, I mean, I do SWOT with a double T. I always say
what is the other T?
The other T is strengths. I separate strengths from threats, and I separate them from the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities. Because if you take trends on its own, there are things you might miss in the first four that you may actually be able to pick, especially trends which don't necessarily impact on your business, but which indirectly may be having that long-term curve that affects you in a way that you do not expect. So these factors enable you assess the environment. I mean, let's take a simple example. Nobody could predict COVID, or at least nobody predicted COVID. But if you had a good strategy and you were expecting to import from, let's say, China, and COVID happened and China closed down, then you know that your supply chains are locked up. And therefore you need to find new supply chains. But a good planner will always have the what-if effect. The what-if effect is simply, I'm importing from China. Your strategy should tell you, what if China closed down? You may not know it will close down from COVID, but you have your plan B for your alternate sources of supply. Israel Hamas war may be far removed from us, but initially my view is that it wasn't going to affect fuel prices. But look at what the rebels, the Houthi rebels are doing in the Red Sea.
Is it going to impact on
It may, and therefore you need to be planning how if your business is very dependent on fuel sources, it may affect it. So these are all factors you take into account. So we cannot completely say that because external factors affect our strategy, we should discuss strategy altogether.
I know that for every right business, let me use the word quote, serious business, the planning and strategy had been done somewhere around July last year and all the rest and all those things. And there are those who are there who would wait for the multinationals and their bosses in Dubai and Mauritius to send them the plan to work around the local strategy and all the rest. Looking at what is happening now, is it too late to rejig that plan for this year? Because certain things are happening. We'll be going into the IMF program, we're going into the possibility of government starting to repay its debt and all the rest, and how that would impact on the business. The bit about election-related spending and how things will go, revenue and all the rest. Is it too late to try and rejig January 2024?
It's absolutely never, ever too late to rejig strategy, to use your words. And I think people confuse strategy with tactic. They are two different things. Strategy is the broader goal and how to achieve that goal. So I have a goal, I have a target, and I've strategized on how to achieve that. Tactic is what I do on a day-to-day basis, and that you can rejig. You can change the whole strategy if necessary. The other thing important to think about when you are talking about strategy is that it's a continuum. You cannot just say, I'm strategizing for 2024, unless you are a startup. You are strategizing for 2024, 2025 upwards because of what you have already done in 2023. So it builds on what already exists. So if you are not building on what you already exist, then your strategy is wrong unless you are starting or you are completely changing your direction. So that's a very important. The third aspect to think about or to focus on is that strategy depends on the rank of the ladder you occupy. I mean, and that's one of the criticisms I have with African governments.
Medium size, or
exactly. But besides, African governments plan our strategy as if we are the US. We do inflation targeting and all those kind of things. Which doesn't really apply to our economy.
Should we stop doing those?
I've been talking about it over and over. You don't live on credit.
Yeah.
You don't. I shouldn't. I'm not saying we should stop, but we overemphasize it. You don't live on credit, and therefore monetary policy adjustments doesn't affect your consumption that much. You live by buying everything. We did 5 monetary policy adjustments. Unilever
and all the rest are affected by that, and they do things that impact on me, Georgia.
I understand that. I perfectly understand that. But inflation targeting and monetary policy as a basis for determining whether people will spend or not hasn't worked for years. We know that.
Tamusi, that is debatable.
Well, that's my stance. That's the reason. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of being able to to discuss. My point is, if you have an economy that is focused on credit and borrowing, a slight adjustment to make people spend less. But when you have an economy which is not focused on borrowing, an adjustment in monetary policy rate increases the bank lending rate. It increases the cost of doing business, and businesses pass it on to the ordinary people. And therefore, it creates inflation more than reduce it. Turkey and China did the opposite. They reduced monetary policy rate during the global inflation era. And initially, it looked like they were wrong. Now the results are very clear.
But Turkey is